This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Super Crow stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show from the Super Crowd. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and I am so excited today. We have such a cool, sexy, impactful offering we're going to be talking about with founder Jonathan Cohen of 2020 GeneSystems. Stick around. You don't want to miss this conversation. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Devin. Happy to be with you.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and excited for this conversation. You know, it's the fact is, ordinary investors like me rarely get an opportunity to take a serious look at high quality opportunities to invest in really advanced medical technology like you're doing. You're developing some really cool, effective early cancer detection tools that could really change the game in extending lives for a lot of people. Tell us about your technology.
Sure, happily, Devin. And I just want to clarify, it's not just something we're developing. We're actually offering today one of actually only two multi-cancer early detection blood tests on the market here in the United States. The product is called OneTest. You can visit onetestforcancer.com to learn more. And each day in our lab, and I'm in one of our labs as we speak, the instrument over my left shoulder is one of several here, and we run 40 or 50 blood specimens every day and report results from throughout the United States. And what the goal is to help identify cancers earlier when they can be more effectively treated, and in some cases even cured.
Yeah, that is so exciting to think about because there are so many cancers. I think of pancreatic cancer, which killed my father, as being one of the most famous for this feature, but it's so difficult to detect because it tends to be, not very symptomatic. That most people, when they, Steve Jobs had it, when it's detected, you're ready to die within weeks. My dad died 9 days after being diagnosed. It's just a terrible disease. And so, but there are other cancers like this too, right? This is a big deal.
It sure is. And I just want to clarify for your audience one important scientific aspect of our approach. Unlike our competitors, and right now we have one major competitor here in the United States, a well-known company called Grail. They have a test called Gallery. We do not measure DNA biomarkers. We measure proteins or antigens. And there are some advantages of that I'm happy to elaborate on, but I am sorry to hear about the loss of your father. But pancreatic cancer is actually one of those that our test performs best at. And the most compelling evidence of that I can offer is just a few months ago, we voluntarily participated in a blinded verification study conducted by the U.S. National Cancer Institute, part of the NIH or National Institutes of Health, where us and about 24 other companies that were developing multi-cancer tests were sent blinded about 800 specimens. In our case, those specimens were from what's called a prospective cohort. What that means is the blood was collected before the individual was diagnosed with cancer, about 6 months. And we correctly identified about 70% or so of pancreatic cancers, about half early stage 1 and 2. And this is in a what's known as a pre-diagnostic or prospective cohort. we believe that with serial testing, in other words, testing at least once, perhaps twice a year, we should be able to detect about 65, possibly even 70% of early stage pre-symptomatic pancreas and ovarian cancers, another one we did very well on, and perhaps a little bit lower numbers of lung cancer, which is the number one most deadly cancer currently in the United States.
Wow, these are such impactful, really game-changing, impacts. I just, it's a little bit flabbergasting that how great this is, and I'm really excited by what you're doing. I'm going to pull back the curtain just a little bit. We're recording this a few weeks in advance, and one of the impacts of that is you will be participating in the past on our Superpowers for Good live pitch on November 13th. So you will have been on that. You'll also have been on hosted a webinar where you're going to talk a little bit about a new relationship and some technology that you have, where you're going to be looking to do an IPO someday that would be different than a traditional IPO. Can you tell us a little bit about that today?
Happily. So one of the things I want to point out, one thing I'm very proud of, is our company 2020 was perhaps the first, certainly among the first, life science companies to succeed at equity crowdfunding. We did equity crowdfunding initially in late 2017, early 2018, and were very, very successful. At that time, most of the companies doing this were either breweries, distilleries, restaurateurs, B-movie producers, and the like. And it was really almost unheard of for a biotech company to do this, let alone do it well. Now that's changed, and there's some very compelling companies these days on the various crowdfunding platforms. So we're actually looking forward to being pioneers yet again. And we believe that investors in crowdfunding, and we have close to 8,000 so far as shareholders, having raised about 12 million through Reg A and Reg CF over the years, should, when they're ready, have an opportunity to sell or trade their shares, which is why we were so excited to get to know a company called ClearingBid, a company that themselves have been very, very successful at equity crowdfunding, who are pioneering a very innovative approach to IPOs. In short, what they are doing is developing a platform. They have a technology and a platform that allows retail investors, everyday Americans, to invest essentially together with and on the same terms, at the same price as the Wall Street insiders. This aligns with our values. It dovetails with what we consider to be the best interests of our shareholders, which is why we are so excited to be partnering with ClearingBid.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about this because of the great kind of the democratization of IPOs. It's one of the most frustrating things about being an ordinary investor is that if you get excited about an upcoming IPO and you've got your regular old ordinary Charles Schwab or Robinhood account, it's really tough to get in on an IPO as part of the initial public offering. What you end up doing is trading in the aftermarket, where oftentimes you end up paying a lot more than those IPO investors did. And so they're really profiting off of you. And wait a minute, why should I be investing in Goldman Sachs profits, right? So this is an exciting thing, very exciting work. But this gets back to you alluded to this, right? This aligns with your sense of mission and purpose because you're about democratizing the ownership of biotech quality assets, right? Tell us a little bit about why you have been doing offerings under Reg A and Reg CF, and now you have this WeFunder offering going. What's the key there?
Great question, Devin. So we believe, well, so let me begin by talking about our philosophy for cancer detection, and then this will help frame why we think equity crowdfunding fits so nicely with our overall company mission. So just as cancer doesn't discriminate by your income, we think cancer testing should be available to all. Our competitor, the number one market leader, Grail, offers a test at just about $1,000. Our test starts closer to $200. And that's in large part because we can automate our testing with instruments like the one behind me. This is a smaller version of the same automated, it's called an immunoassay analyzer that you would find in your local hospital at LabCorp and Quest. Very, very automated, robotic in sense. So we can offer tests at a far lower price than those companies that do some form of what's called next generation sequencing or DNA sequencing. So we believe that cancer testing should not just be for the so-called worried rich, it should be for everybody. Now, one of the exciting things we've done recently that advances that even further is we have now validated and are now offering home collection. So all the specimens come to our lab. It's not a point of care testing like a COVID antigen test that you might get at the local pharmacy, but you can collect at home. You don't need to go and get a venipuncture blood draw from a phlebotomist, which takes time. So in many cases, it can be very painful. Devices like the one I'm holding in my hand gently apply, you roll up your sleeve and you flick the switch, and it reliably detects about a half a milliliter of blood, which is what we need. And we have a better than 95% success rate. Since we began offering this about a month ago, more than 60% of our consumers have opted for capillary or home collection rather than traditional venipuncture blood draws. And so this again allows us to make testing not only affordable, but accessible. And again, so we believe that everyone, essentially regardless of their income, should be able to access and get access to our products. And similarly, what we love about crowdfunding is that our customers become our shareholders and vice versa. And we see this all the time. A lot of our shareholders have become customers, and our customers have become shareholders. And if you go to WeFunder, you'll see testimonials along those lines. So that's why we have chosen this particular approach to financing our companies. Now, we do also have employers is actually a larger part, or B2B is a larger part of our customer base, but consumers or B2C is also a growing segment of our customer base.
This is really exciting stuff. I think about the impact of this, and it's pretty amazing. I really, I think about how this would change, my life. I don't have to go any farther than thinking about my life to think about how this is a game changer. I'm so fortunate. I think, most of us have had good phlebotomists. Most of the time we've had to do a blood draw, but we've all probably also had the one bad one, right? Four stick. And you're just like, holy cow, wait a minute. So yeah, love the capillary option. That's really exciting. So listen, Jonathan, we're going to take a quick break here. Folks, I'm here today with Jonathan Cohen. He is the founder and CEO of 2020 GeneSystems, a really high-tech biotech company that is doing an offering on WeFunder right now. But stick around. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to talk to Jonathan about his superpower.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can be a green at Raise Green.
Want to learn from the world's great changemakers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited today. We're having such a fun conversation today with Jonathan Cohen, the CEO and founder of 2020 GeneSystems. We're a high-tech biotech company with a WeFunder offering that's live right now. We're going to shift gears, talk to Jonathan about his superpowers. So stick around. Jonathan, you're doing some truly amazing things that I am really excited about. And you've had a stellar career. This isn't your first rodeo. Tell us, Jonathan, what is your superpower?
Well, my background, I'm actually a registered patent attorney, and I worked in-house counsel for two publicly traded companies before starting 2020. One of them was acquired, had a very successful acquisition, $3.5 billion. So I'm dual trained. I have a Master of Science degree in biotechnology from Johns Hopkins University and a law degree. So that's a little bit about my background, but I've been an entrepreneur for many years and very much enjoy it. I'm an inventor, 4 or 5 patents to date. And I've got fairly wide scope of experience in terms of getting deals done with Fortune 500 companies, capital formation, and managing scientific teams, commercialization. We were during the pandemic, we pivoted to COVID testing, and we generated substantial revenue and profit, becoming one of the we ranked number 131 on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing companies in America, something we're quite proud of. And we think we'll be back on that list probably in 2026 for our cancer testing.
That's exciting. That's exciting to think about. So as you think about your superpower, how would you characterize it? If I said, give us 3 words to describe your superpower, what is it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. When you say superpower, maybe you could help.
Yeah, what is what leadership skill empowers and enables you to have all this success?
Well, I think in my case, if I may, I think some of my strengths include I am a very creative CEO. I think most of them, certainly of startups and emerging growth companies, need to be to some extent. But I do tend to think outside the box. And I think the evidence of that is our fact that we were very early in doing crowdfunding. We were one of the first companies to launch a multi-cancer early detection test. So I think creativity is one of them. The other thing, and we're located in just outside of our nation's capital, in the suburbs of Maryland. I have been very involved in public policy initiatives at both the state and federal level, and have been responsible for legislation, particularly at the state level, some very successful legislation over the years to create incentives for investors in biotech companies, for example, and more recently, some funding for fire departments in the state of Maryland for cancer screening to allow them to be able to afford our test, since firefighters have proven high incidence and death for a variety of cancers. So I think those are 2 of my strengths. It's been a degree of sort of political sophistication and ability to engage with policymakers, but also just an overall kind of creativity and ability to come up with deal structure and win-win initiatives to help get deals done.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's drill down a little bit on your creativity and thinking outside the box superpower. Can you give us another example, perhaps in the context of a story or anecdote that would help illustrate that ability?
Well, I think that during the pandemic, we pivoted, as I said, and we were one of the first companies to bring COVID testing of any type into the United States. There was about a week or two when I think we were it. Now, this is back the very beginning, February of 2020, when there was nothing, and we brought in rapid antibody tests. They quickly got replaced by the PCR testing, and eventually we pivoted to that. So I think that took a lot of getting those tests into the United States. They came from East Asia. Was really it took a lot of dexterity and negotiating skills. We are engaged right now with some large companies, and there's a kind of a tug of war in the diagnostics world in general, but in the multi-cancer arena in particular, over proteins versus DNA. So some of your viewers may recall, with COVID testing, the debate between PCR, which is a nucleic acid approach, and the rapid antigen test that you get at a drugstore. And there are pros and cons to each. That analogy is not perfect, but it's generally, it gets you sort of in the right direction. And similarly, there's a bit of a debate right now whether proteins are the best way to detect cancers. Like PSA is an antigen, a protein. That's a protein test versus DNA testing, where a lot of the venture-backed companies are moving. Our vision is actually not one or the other, but you start with the protein test. You start with the test that seems to have a little better accuracy for early stage cancers. It's less expensive, and it can be accessed at home with devices like this. And then you reflex or follow up with the DNA-based testing, which their strength is they have much better tissue of origin specificity. In other words, pinpointing where in the body that signal is likely to come. So that paradigm, and we were not alone in championing it, but I think we were one of the first, is starting to catch on. I'm starting to hear from key opinion leaders in big companies and government and academia that this might be the way it pans out over the next couple of years. So if I'm right, if we're right, we we would be the point of the spear. This test, one test, would essentially be regularly provided or offered to most adult Americans.
That's
at least
great.
once a year.
That's great.
It's not inevitable, and science can move in all sorts of ways. So I want to be a little bit humble here.
Sure.
I think there's
I get that.
reasonable.
Let me ask you to think about how we can all be more creative, more think out of the box like you. Give us one good tip.
Well, that's a bit hard. So I think that pausing and not necessarily, if everyone's moving in a certain direction, like in our case, virtually every company that is developing, I know of no exceptions, at least in the United States. The whole herd was moving toward the DNA approach. We took a very different approach, and we took an older approach, but we modernized it using AI, machine learning algorithms built with large data sets. So we were early in applying AI to these types of tests and have a nice patent position to back that up with some early priority dates. So I think my recommendation would be pause and don't necessarily go with I'll use crowd in lower with a
Right.
lowercase c here, right? Don't,
Yeah,
if
good
everyone
tip.
is moving right, maybe you want to move to the left. Now, that's a bit
You
of a
got to look at what's going
contrarian.
on left. I love it. Listen,
It's a
our time
contrarian
is
view,
up.
and not everyone. It's not.
Our time
A
is
lot
up.
of it has to
So
do with people's own
use,
DNA. But yeah,
Jonathan, use your time. Use your time. You got 30 seconds. Tell us how to learn more about the WeFunder campaign.
okay. Well, I believe you're showing. Go to wefunder.com. You can enter in the search bar 2020, and you'll find us 20/20. Easy to find. You can also go to our website, 20gene2020gene.com. If you're interested in buying the test, going online, you can do so at onetestforcancer.com or onetest.ai, I believe would also get you there as well.
All righty. Jonathan, we're thrilled to have had you on the show. Thanks for being here. We wish you every success.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Now let's do some good.